Hello! Hi, this is Maloon here. Here to talk today about the paragraph diagram. Now, some of your classes haven't gotten to this yet, and that's okay. We're going to get to it next week. However, I wanted to kind of walk you through the process of building a paragraph with textual evidence in it. I have your handy-dandy paragraph diagram here, and I've outfitted it with some really nice little reminders here of our past writing experience with race. Okay. And I've even put in like our lead off and follow-up pieces all over here. But what I'd like to do is kind of walk you through how we take information from a source and turn it into a well-written paragraph. Okay, now, some of this will seem like magic to you because I've already got all this stuff sorted out and I've already got it picked out, so I know what I'm looking for. The bottom line is that when you guys are pulling in evidence from a source, you're really going to have to read your sources carefully, and you're going to have to make a note of what you want to use and what you don't want to use. Okay, that'll be up to you. Okay, use stuff that's going to help you. Make sure that whatever evidence you're pulling actually helps prove your point. Okay, I get some people sometimes, I'm just like, well, what does this mean? Why did you use this piece? And I'm like, I don't know, I just picked it. What the heck is that good is that going to do you? It's not going to do you any good. That's what. Because you don't know what the heck that piece of information is doing for your argument. You only want to pick sources and pieces of information that are going to support your argument. Okay? So, with that in mind, we're going to use the article that you guys read last on News ELA about caffeine. This guy right here. Teens, that trendy coffee drink in your hands has too much caffeine for you. That one. Since you've already read it, at least I'm assuming you've read it, should have read it, should be done. I'm going to assume that you've already read it. And so when we look for pieces of information, I'm obviously not going to go through and read the whole thing to you, right? I want to keep this video like not 15 hours long, okay? But I'm going to kind of point you to the sources that I use, the information I used and pulled out of here, and show you how it all fits into this really nice diagram. And these diagrams are super, super helpful. You can use as many of them as you want on your essay when you write it for me. But the idea is that they're helping you structure that information so that you understand what I'm doing now, what I'm doing next, what I'm going to do after that. Okay, and it becomes kind of a process for you. And then when you've done it enough times, then all of a sudden you're like this amazing writer and you can like go do really great stuff and write really great pieces. Right? So I'm assuming you've already read this. So we're going to go back to our doc over here. And the first thing that we really need is a topic sentence, right? And if we remember our discussion of argument, claim, and evidence, argument is your overall stance on an issue. Okay? So because the article goes against teens using caffeine, I'm just going to make it easy. And I'm going to say that my stance is that I don't think teens should drink so much caffeine, which is actually a real thing that I feel. You guys really need to watch that. The Monsters, the energy drinks, not good for your body. Okay, just be aware of that. All right? But that's my argument. Okay, my argument is that I don't think teens should be drinking tons of caffeine. Okay? But remember that claims come in every body paragraph, right? And they're usually the main idea sentence of the paragraph, which for us means that it's the topic sentence, right? So right here, I've got your topic sentence, and I've even wrote ding, 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 claim right here, okay? Your claim is the reason why you feel your argument is true, okay? So in this particular claim, I feel that this particular claim is true because teens should avoid caffeine because it's hard on their developing bodies. I feel like you guys should avoid caffeine because when you're growing, it's not great for you, okay? Now, usually I'll tell you just use this outline, as a bare bones kind of thing if you need to. But ultimately, this guy right here, that topic sentence, should probably be written out in its entirety just to help you understand where you're going with your writing, okay? So this is my topic sentence. This is my claim. Teens should avoid caffeine because it's hard on their developing bodies. Now, you've never done this part before, but you have to pick your sequence, your point of view, and your tense all on your own this time. Okay, they didn't give it to you. They didn't let you know. Thank you. Dan, the custodian, came in and helped me out. You have to pick your sequence, your point of view, and your tense all by yourself. Okay, and you haven't done that yet, but you know all your points of view, right? What are they? Yes, you're absolutely correct. It's first, second, and third, right? First is I, me, my. Second is you and your. Third is he, she, they, it, and everything else, right? This is a formal paper. You will almost never use first person in your body paragraphs, okay? That's informal writing that doesn't really help us. And a lot of times you won't even use second person in it either, okay? Usually we pick third, okay? But before we get to that, let's talk about your sequence. We need a sequence that's going to provide a lot of flexibility for us, that's going to let us choose from a big array of transitional words. So I think chain link is going to be the best for us to go through, okay? All right, so we got chain link, and we've already said that third person point of view is really where it's at when we're writing. Now, this is another thing, tense, okay? Usually when we write formally, even if we're writing about things that happened in the past, that we think happened in the past, like let's say you were writing your Mice and Men essays right now. Even though you're writing about a book that was written in the past, you're going to talk about it as though it's in present tense. You're going to talk about Lenny and George's actions as though they're in present tense. Same thing here. We're going to act like everything we're doing is in present tense. Okay? It keeps us here. It keeps us now. Then our reader doesn't have to worry about, well, when did these things happen? When were these sources you're using relevant? Why are you using past tense? Are they not relevant anymore? I don't know. All right? If we just use present tense, it makes everything nice, neat, clean cut, and it sounds better. Okay? Now, that does not necessarily mean that all of your quotes and your evidence are going to be in present tense. Okay? That's okay. You didn't say that. It's okay. Not a big deal. Okay? All right. So now that we've got those three really important things figured out, if you look over here, that's the R, right? We restated kind of our question. Isn't our question really overall like, why do you feel teens shouldn't have caffeine? Or why do you feel teens should avoid caffeine? And we restated that question here. Teens should avoid caffeine because it's hard on their developing bodies. Okay? So now we get to the ACE of race. Okay? And we're going to repeat that cycle a couple times. Okay? The A is the answer to that question. It's your idea, right? So this is your lead-off sentence. And we always know that lead-offs need what? Transitions, right? So we have a lead-off here. And I said, my idea in all this, I was thinking that, we're talking about teens developing bodies, so we kind of have to talk about the physical body as well as the mind, okay? As well as the brain, okay? So I said teen brains don't process caffeine like adult brains do. Okay, because remember that the evidence you're pulling to support your topic is all funneling up, right? All of this information that you pull together and that you have in your own head is funneling up to support that claim, okay? So why should teens avoid caffeine? It's hard in their developing bodies because teen brains don't process caffeine like adult brains do, okay? Now, this is not my full-on sentence, okay? I just put a little note here for myself so I knew what I was going to write. However, we do have a transition here because this is a lead-off sentence, all right? So my transition is one reason teens should avoid caffeine is ... So when I write it out and like as my actual paragraph, it's going to say one reason teens should avoid caffeine is that teen brains don't process caffeine like adult brains do, and then whatever else I added to it, you'll see that at the end, okay? Remember, if you really want to write out everything like piecemeal right here on this chart, that's okay. You can totally do that. I have no problem with that. Just keep in mind that you're going to need enough room to do that, okay? If you want to write this more as a skeletal piece, where you have like little notes for yourself, but ultimately in the end, you're able to fill in the gaps with your own writing and your own flair and style, that's okay too, okay? We're all at different levels here. So whatever level you're at, we got you covered, all right? Okay, so my idea here is that teen brains don't process caffeine like adult brains do. Now I need the C. I need the cite evidence part. I need to back that up. Back it up. Back it up. Back it up. Okay, I'm just kidding. We need to back up that evidence. We need to back up that idea with some evidence, okay? So I went back into the text, and because I know that you've read it, such good students, and I know that you are wonderful, lovely students who always read the assignments I give you. I know that you've read this, okay? I'm going to do some movie magic here, and I'm just going to scoot on down here to where I think it is, okay? So let's pretend I'm reading, and all of a sudden, oh, look at that. Bodies are still growing, and your brains are still fine-tuning their neural connections that make up the network of your brain. Because of this, you probably cannot process caffeine as seamlessly as your parents can. Sounds an awful lot like it supports the idea that little teenage brains cannot process caffeine the way adult brains do, right? So instead of taking that entire thing and trying to shove it into the diagram, I'm going to take a little piece of it to remind myself where it is. And I'm going to leave myself a couple notes so that I can find it later, okay? So if we go back to our diagram, hop over here. I put my little note in there. I used part of the quote that I'm going to use. And I made sure I remember that it was only part of the quote because I put my little ... here, my little ellipses. And then I even made sure I put the author's last name in there. And that's actually what an in-text citation looks like, okay, just in those parentheses like that. And I even put the paragraph number on here. So when I go back to look for it later, I know I can find it because I just got to scroll down that third paragraph. Boom, there it is, okay? Now, I know that this is a follow-up sentence. And I know that protocol states that we do not use transitions for follow-up sentence. However, this is a follow-up sentence that uses evidence and uses a text, like an actual quote, okay? We can't just plop a quote in there and let it stay there. We can't do that, okay? That's not good writing. That's not how we do things, okay? We got to, like, prepare our readers for the awesomeness that is this quote that we are going to lay on them. Be like, oh, I'm sorry. You need to, like, prepare yourself mentally for this amazing information, okay? We need to prepare them for that. So even though I know we don't do transitions for follow-up sentences, we will have a little sentence starter here. So I just put it in the transitions column so that we remember that it's there and that we put it in the same spot we would put a transition. Okay, we put it right at the very beginning of the sentence. And this was kind of long. I just wanted you to kind of see different kinds of lead-ins for evidence, okay? So in her article, quote, teens that trendy coffee drink in your hand has too much caffeine for you, Casey Seidenberg writes, and then you drop your quote in. Boom, done. And then you don't even have to do an in-text citation because you've already introduced us to the author and to the title of the article. So you don't even need the piece of in-text citation. Woohoo! Much easier way to do things. Now, when you write full-on, like, bigger papers, you're probably not going to do that all the time. In-text citations will probably be really helpful, but they're super, super easy to write and to put in there. So, like, don't worry about that. All right, we got it. Okay, so we have our idea, we have our evidence. Now we need to get to that E part. The E part is probably one of the most important parts of the whole thing because we need to explain how this evidence supports our overarching idea. How does this evidence support our claim? How does it all fit together? What does the end result puzzle look like? Okay. So again, this is a follow-up sentence, and I connected it together by using the idea that teen brains are still vulnerable, and caffeine might impair the processes that they have to go through. Okay, and obviously this is just a note for me. I actually wrote the whole sentence out and filled in the gaps when I actually wrote the paragraph. Okay. And again, we don't usually use transitions for follow-ups. However, I wanted to show you a sentence starter that you can use to get yourself into this evidence, okay, or into this explanation. A lot of times we can use this shows, this demonstrates, this proves as a way of getting into our evidence. Sometimes you need that sentence starter, and sometimes you don't when it comes to explanations. I will let you be the judge of that. You know, what do you feel is best? What do you feel sounds right to you according to your style? Okay? Some of you are like, Miss Green, I don't have any writing style. That's okay. We're going to get you one. All right? So, cool. We've gone through one ACE cycle. Okay? We have our idea. We answered that question. We have textual evidence. We cited it. And we explained how that evidence supports our overarching claim. Now, let's do it again. So my other idea, we talked about the mind. Now we need to talk about the physical body and how that is affected by caffeine. So I decided, oops, there we go. I decided I wanted to talk about the negative physical side effects that can come with having caffeine and then not having it anymore. Okay, so I said teens experience negative physical reactions from caffeine. Okay, and it is a lead-off sentence, so it does have a transition, right? And our transition this time is additionally. Pretty easy, right? Additionally, teens experience negative physical reactions from caffeine. Okay, how do they do that? How does that happen? What in the text proves that? Well, we're going to go back and say, okay, I'm going to go through here and I'm going to look for stuff that supports my point. Let's see. Miss Green needs to find the spot she found earlier. Movie magic, right? Oh, hey, here we go. All right, the power of caffeine. Okay. Caffeine is widely considered to be a drug. It's a chemical that changes brain function and affects mood, cognition, thinking, or behavior. It may be a drug that is socially acceptable, universally used, even cool, but it still causes withdrawal symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, and a lack of attention when removed from the diet. Those definitely sound like physical symptoms, don't they? So we're going to take that quote, okay, obviously not the whole thing, okay, but we are going to take that quote, we're going to put it back over here and use it. Okay, we're gonna remind ourselves again. I know we only have one article this time, so it's kind of silly, but you're gonna have multiple articles to work with, so it's gonna be a lot easier for you to do it this way. So we're gonna remind ourselves who said it and where it was at, so we can go back and find it. When you guys are taking your state test, please feel free to build one of these diagrams on your paper. Feel free to take notes in that little notes box they give you, that little notepad they give you. Take notes there. Keep them there. Okay, that way you can go back and find things later. It's not as hard for you. It'll work. Okay? So, we have our piece of evidence. It supports our points. And now let's look over here and see how we introduced that quote. It says, in Article 1, Seidenberg writes. Okay, so we just used the last name this time because we've already introduced her first and last name. And we didn't use the title of the article. We just said in Article 1, right? Because if you think about your sources, it's going to be source 1, source 2, source 3, right on your state test. So you can say in source 1, so-and-so writes or says or explains, and then put your quote in there, okay? So in Article 1, Seidenberg writes, but it still causes withdrawal symptoms, headaches, fatigue, blah, blah, blah. We'll put the whole quote in there later, okay? This is just our building block, okay? And now we need to explain how this information fits in with our overall point. That teens should avoid caffeine because it messes with their developing bodies. Okay? So we need to explain that. I left myself a little note here because I think that if you're experiencing all of those withdrawal symptoms, it's going to make life and school and work totally miserable, right? And it's going to negatively affect how you are processing the world, okay? And this time, I didn't use a lead-in or a transition to get into this information. I just left it because I felt I could do it without it, okay? Cool, so we've been through ACE twice, okay? Now we need a clincher sentence that's going to help launch us into the next paragraph, okay? So let's open that up. And I wrote, overall, there's your concluding transition, right? Overall, caffeine may seem cool, but the many negative effects it can have on teens outweigh the positive image. Ooh, check it out. We got a clue word here. So let's go back up and check our topic sentence. Teens should avoid caffeine because it's hard on their developing bodies. Okay, that's definitely general. That's a general topic sentence. And we have a cluing topic sentence down here that does talk about those negative effects on teens. So it talks about that same main idea, okay? But it does it in a different way. It uses a cluing sentence instead of a general one. So we're good, and we have our concluding transition, so we're all set. Let's look at what this bad boy will look like when I actually wrote it out as a whole paragraph. Are you ready? It's story time. Oh, Miss Green, why did you write so much? Because I needed to. I needed to show you all the beautiful work you can do. All right, it wouldn't let me tab here, but generally speaking, this would be indented. I apologize. All right. Teens should avoid caffeine because it's hard on their developing bodies and brains. One reason caffeine is harmful is because teen brains don't process caffeine like adult brains do. In her article, Teens, That Trendy Coffee Drink in Your Hand Has Too Much Caffeine for You, Casey Seidenberg writes, "Yet your bodies are still growing and your brains are still fine-tuning their neural connections that make up the network of your brain. Because of this, you probably cannot process caffeine as seamlessly as your parents can. This shows that teen brains are still vulnerable when they are trying to grow, and adding caffeine could impair that process. Additionally, teens experience negative physical reactions to caffeine, specifically when they try to quit. In Article 1, Seidenberg writes, "It may be a drug that is socially acceptable, universally used, even cool, but it still causes withdrawal symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, and a lack of attention when removed from the diet. These symptoms can make life, work, and school miserable for teens." I feel like I might be able to beef up that explanation a little bit, maybe next time. Overall, caffeine may seem cool, but the negative effects it can have on teens outweigh the positive image. Ta-da! And there it is. That is a good-looking paragraph. I'd go on a date with that paragraph. That's how good-looking it is. Okay. Notice that we do have right here, when we're quoting, okay, we do the comma, space, quotation mark. Okay, super important that you get that right, okay, because you're going to be quoting a lot, so it's going to be important that you practice and you do it the right way every time, okay? All right, this is how this works. So when you come in next week, after we go through all this and I've explained all this to you, you guys are going to be expected to write one of these yourself. From this same article, okay, we're going to practice first before we do the real thing, okay? From that same article, I'm going to ask you to write a paragraph that has textual evidence in it, proving a claim that I give you. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. If you have any questions about this, or you're concerned, or you're like super overwhelmed, feel free to take this video one step at a time. Okay? That's all you have to do. One step at a time. You've got this. You can definitely do this. All right? If you have questions, shoot me an email. Let me know. Okay? Bye, guys.